What's up, everyone? I'm Not Your Friend Guy, and with the Season 14 push in the rearview, I wanted to talk about my initial thoughts and answer some questions that have continued to pop up about decisions regarding the overall season strategy. Unfortunately, disheartened and disappointed are the first words that come to mind about the season. I've preached at length to my Discord that a group of dedicated gamers can make it so that leveling services, stores, and cheaters can never see the top spot. This was a perfect opportunity to show exactly that, and in the end, we came up a bit short. What's worse is there are a lot of regrettable decisions I made throughout the push that could have easily shortened our time by 90 minutes, which would have been enough to edge them out. How can we know that we were not run down by another group of grinders? Well, the evidence is pretty stacked up against them. First, playing multiple characters at the start of the ladder across many different game modes isn't something that grinders do. It's a bot farm technique used to get bots set up early. Second, they've got zero downtime in the XP gain once their XP character starts its run. Now, playing for 36 hours straight isn't the issue here. We do that all the time. It's the idea that at the 20th and the 24th and the 30th and even the 36th hour, they remained 100% fast and efficient. That's not really a human trait. That's a robot trait. Maybe they had multiple humans taking shifts, but that really isn't okay either. Hashtag terms of service. Third, their name points you to a website and a service provider where you can pay to get a character on your account power leveled up to 99. And fourth, the advertised service is cheap. Google Translate tells me that it's only $10. And you can PM him for an even lower price. Nothing that is that cheap is not automated. I am 100% confident that this entity is a store with many bots and programs running full time to achieve this type of advertisement. Hopefully, Blizzard does the honorable thing and bans them off the top of the leaderboard in accordance with a precedent they set back in Season 10. That aside, let's talk about some of the ups and downs. Things that didn't go so great. It just wouldn't be a ladder reset without someone having issues connecting to Battle.net and getting into the games. We were at P7 all the way through Act 1 at launch, and then needed to catch that player up once they finally were able to get in. The Worldstone Shard drop rate felt different. Playing in the PTR made it feel like the drop rate was going to be much higher, and our strat required a very large amount of them. So that was not a pleasant surprise. And I grossly underestimated the amount of time I would spend repairing my javelin. It got to the point where we started having me carry multiple sets and then having a designated Jav repairman in town to run the empty sets to the repair guy while I emptied another set. But we were making this up on the fly, and that led to a lot of abandoned javelins, so we had to give it up. It wasn't all bad, though. Things that went well. We finished the 99 grind in just over 66 hours and 12 minutes, which is 3 hours faster than our previous best of 69 hours and 18 minutes from Season 12. And we did that while sleeping for 6 hours. In Season 12, we only slept for 3. Plus, we did this season with an Amazon instead of an OP Mosaic Assassin like we had in seasons past. And we collected some excellent data points on our strategy, where it shined, and how it can be improved. Now, I want to answer some questions that I've gotten before, during, and after the push. And I'm going to start with the most common one, which was, why no tombs? On stream, it may have felt like I was resistant to going into the tombs for XP, and that's kind of because I was, and here's why. First, to do tombs effectively, you need to have a class with good mobility. Paladin, Warlock, and Sorceress are the right characters for this area because they have very good cast rate frames and very attainable breakpoint numbers. We had already settled on an Amazon, who is notorious for having the worst mobility in the game. Even if you try to reach the breakpoints suck. If you have a Griffins and a Perfect Spirit, you're sitting at 60 FCR, which is enough for the 48 breakpoint of the Amazon, which is the same as a paladin with a single FCR ring or a dead sorceress. Throwing on an FCR ring gets you another breakpoint, but still only puts you at level 1 sorceress cast rate speeds. The class we had chosen just does not work well in the tombs. Second, tombs is a very single-player mindset. You run tombs when you have to do everything yourself. If you're loading in extra accounts, or in Llama's case where he's playing with his chat and his community, but for his purposes, they're just extra bodies in the game, tombs is very ideal. The volume that they have draws the game out. Drawing the game out comes with two major benefits. First, it's low on resource cost because it's 1 Worldstone shard per game. And it's very likely that you can self-sustain because the ability to replenish a single shard in a long game is very high. Second, it gives the other players in the game enough time to do something, which is really beneficial for keeping 8 players in a game. But if you have an entire team that's there to help you out, then you no longer have to confine yourself to a tomb. You can think outside the box and explore other options and see what the efficiency of those options are. And that brings me to my last point. And this might not be a satisfying answer because of how the race ended, but the reality is we needed the data. Prior to Worldstone shards, it was already widely accepted that Tombs was the best. You've got write-ups and videos all over the internet. Even last season, when they introduced shards, all that happened is that players would continue the same single-player mindset and just use the shards to increase the frequency of the tombs. But what no one had done yet is try to figure out if this previously accepted meta was still the best. Worldstone shards have created a ton of new possibilities for XP grinding, one that had not even had its surface scratched yet. With how difficult it is to get people involved in actually testing a new theory, you're kind of limited to what you can do in single player with player count commands. Ultimately, this means the data collection can only happen if you're doing it live.
No. We'll do it live! Fuck it! Do it live!
Thankfully, we collected some really important data points that we can now use to continue to refine and optimize our strategy to ensure that in future seasons, no matter how fast some leveling service goes, we're going faster. The obvious follow-up to the first question was, why Amazon? And then once the push was over, it was, do you think the Amazon was the right call? If we knew the mobility was a big issue, and that issue was going to make the current best XP farm improbable, why not pick a different class? Many people, including Llama, had mentioned their surprise at the class choice, stating that a Warlock or a Sorc would have been better equipped for the job. But again, this is a single-player mentality. I'll start by saying that, yes, in retrospect, I still believe the Zaan was the best choice. Ultimately, the class decision was let down by our lack of knowledge and practice in the endgame strategy we tried to roll out. Running it back is definitely on the table for Season 16, but we're still going to test other classes before Season 16 launches. The changes to the game came so quickly and were ever present that it was very difficult to predict what the coming season would bring. Mosaic was gone, and it was the primary hinge of our previous strategy, and it was likely not returning. The new Warlock, clearly overtuned, was going to be nerfed back to reality, making it an unreasonable contender given its uncertainty. With our most recent success coming as a rank 1 finish in Season 12, and the aforementioned unpredictability of the upcoming Season 14, we wanted to find a class that fit our old strategy the best, instead of attempting to revamp and test all the new things. I did my best in single player to test 4 builds on all of the different stages of our strategy, and the Zaan tested the best for the strategy as a whole, but even more so outshining the rest in the early stage, which is level 75 and 94. We understand that we can't stop people from buying gear and loading accounts, so our philosophy has always been to get far enough ahead to try and hold off the onslaught that is inbound. If we can get far enough in front, the time difference between people buying gear and us farming enough wealth to legitimately acquire the same gear is small enough for us to stay in front. But you can't stay ahead if you don't get ahead. so the early stage of the strat is weighted a little more on the scorecard. Zaan's ability to execute the early strat on basically an Ist rune's value worth of gear was unmatched. Because we don't have the last 10 seasons of fake money to fuel our cause, the cost to build an endgame character is a hugely important factor of our decisions. We can't really guarantee that we will end up with any specific piece of gear fast enough to remain relevant. Pushers that buy gear don't understand what it means to have the possibility of not having an item you need. Even Llama will never again know the struggle, as he has worked hard to build his community, and now they are so large that they always have the means to make sure he has what he needs in a decent timeline. But for us, there is no promise of Enigma, and by the time we actually get it, it could be too late. Now this season had some insane RNG. Hands down, the best drops we've ever had. Easily better than all of our other seasons combined. We had Burr Burr Sir Sir by the 16th hour. That has never happened to us before, and I doubt ever happens again. It's serendipitous that we get this insane RNG the season Llama is supporting us. I was really hoping he would experience the grind on a budget. As an OG speedrunner, I think he would have appreciated it. But alas, he brought a ridiculous wave of luck with him. Clearly, we couldn't have known this was going to happen, so we made decisions off of our past experiences. And one of those experiences is that when you're the first one or two teams into Hell, you mostly rely on what you can put together yourself. The ladder item pool just doesn't exist at hour 3. And the items that are out there are trying to be exploited for fake currency to maximize value. This makes the push class need to have both a strong budget early game and a relatively inexpensive late game. History shows that fewer people play Zaan at launch, making their specific items like torches, jabs, belts, and skillers much cheaper to acquire. Conversely, Sork, Pally, and Warlock are very popular, driving the cost of their items up. These things all made the Zaan an ideal candidate. With the class selection in place, the last thing to do was see what parts of our original strat could change and what new small tweaks we could try out. A good strategy is key to help your gear cost situation and fight any deficiencies in your class selection. To combat the Zaan mobility issues making tombs unreasonable, we needed to play into the Zaan's strengths. And frankly, her strength is this. Outside of a Mosaic Assassin, there isn't a class better suited for deleting entire screens of enemies in a short amount of time. Zaan is the only character whose kill speed actually increases with monster density, making her the perfect character class for the endgame strategy we intended to roll out. The plan was to have the team members collect groups of elite enemies into a single space, throw up a TP, and declare their TP ready for harvest. The strat was dubbed Wrangling. Wrangling is designed to eliminate the mobility issue of the Amazon. Enigma is not required to go in and out of town portals. Unfortunately, because Wrangling was so new and untested, we weren't able to execute it very well. What we ended up with was harvest portals that looked like this, but what we were hoping for was harvest portals that looked like this. But this is a part of the strat that goes outside of the box by really utilizing your teammates. Not having them just be player count in the game, but really being able to contribute. The addition of Worldstone shards has opened up the possibilities for refinement and optimization of team play. These were the ever so important data points we needed to get collected to continue to improve on what we do every other season. Over the next season and a half, I'll be crunching the numbers, bouncing ideas off people, and testing some of the things we just didn't have time to test before the launch of Season 14. For a longer list of lessons we learned along the way, check out my Lessons of Season 14 video in the description below. Well, that's all I've got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the leaderboards.